How disappointed were you when you did not see the Prime Minister yesterday? Good morning to you.
Well, good morning to you. I mean, it was very disappointing for the Prime Minister to be absenting himself from the chamber yesterday. You know, it was the Prime Minister who fronted this whole problem last week in Prime Minister's questions when he said that he was going to whip his MPs to go in there and try and cover up the activities that Owen Paterson had been involved in. He trooped his MPs through the lobbies, coercing some of them actually to vote against their better judgment. And then when things blew up in his own face, he ran off to the north of England and refused to come into the House of Commons to apologise. And when you make a mistake, you apologise. And rather than leading, the Prime Minister, I'm afraid, has been hiding, and it's not good enough.
What needs to happen now, in your view?
Well, the Prime Minister does need to apologise, but the problem is this is not a one-off. There's a pattern of behaviour here, and we've seen it over the last 2 years. I mean, you'll remember, I'm sure, the West Ferry scandal about a year and a half ago, where the previous Secretary of State admitted taking an unlawful decision to help a billionaire Conservative Party donor dodge £50 million in tax. Then we had the scandal of the £36 billion in crony contracts during the pandemic, including millions of pounds that went into the bank account of Matt Hancock's pub landlord, David Cameron, the Green Seal scandal, and now Owen Paterson. There's a pattern of behaviour here. And what we need to be doing is putting together an anti-corruption commission to establish a very clear and robust set of rules to prevent any repeat, not just of Owen Paterson, but of all of these other scandals that we've seen, because it's starting to erode trust in British politics and British democracy if we don't sort this out.
What do you imagine awaits the Prime Minister tomorrow, Mr. Reid?
Well, I hope the Prime Minister will come into the chamber and apologise. My expectations are extremely low because he's not known for doing that, but there are other things he needs to do as well. I mean, I'd like him to rule out giving Owen Paterson a peerage. That's something he's refused to rule out so far. And there's another related case where Rob Roberts, a Conservative MP who was found sexually abusing a junior member of his staff, has been let back into the Conservative Party. All of this is eroding confidence and trust in British politics. All of it has to be put right.
Steve Reid is Labour MP for Croydon North and also Shadow Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government. Thanks for
Mr. Speaker, the case of the former member for North Shropshire is simple. Everyone in this House has enormous sympathy for the tragic circumstances in which he lost his wife. Yeah. His pain and his anguish are unimaginable. And I wish to express my condolences to him, as I did at the time. The Committee on Standards rightly took those awful circumstances into account when considering his conduct. There was a serious and robust process. He had prior notice of the charges against him. He had legal advisers with him. He was invited to appeal against the Commissioner's finding in writing and in person, and he did so. The findings were clear: an egregious case of paid advocacy. He took money to lobby ministers. That is against the rules, as it is in any functioning democracy, and it's corrupt. The Prime Minister should have told the former member for North Shropshire that the right thing to do was to accept his punishment. His duty of care demanded that he do that.
Yes, absolutely.
His duty to defend standards demanded that he do that. Basic decency demanded that he do that. Instead, the British people were let down, and the former member for North Shropshire was let down, used as a pawn in an extraordinary attack on our Commissioner for Standards. Threats to have money taken away from schools, hospitals and high streets unless members voted to undermine the Commissioner. Ministers sent out on the airways the morning after the vote to call for her to reconsider and consider her position. And a sham committee proposed so the government can set the judge and jury for future cases. This was a deliberate course of action. but the government was caught off guard by the public outcry and they've climbed down. But, Mr. Speaker, this wasn't a tactical mistake, an innocent misjudgment swiftly corrected by a U-turn. It was the Prime Minister's way of doing business, a pattern of behaviour. When the Prime Minister's visor on the Ministerial Code found against the Home Secretary, the Prime Minister kept the Home Secretary and forced out the advisor. When the Electoral Commission investigated the Conservative Party, the Prime Minister threatened to shut it down. And when the Commissioner for Standards looked into the Prime Minister's donations, the Prime Minister tried to take her down. Government corruption. There is no other word for it.